Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to yet another retro RPG. And at the end of another week, and the end of another poll, we've got an absolutely razor-thin win for the Psionics Handbook for 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. Now we'll have a look at that on the tabletop in a wee second, and as usual I'll be back at the end of the video with some other poll-related stuff and some other channel-related stuff. But I'd like to take a moment to bring attention to my Patreons, who this week have absolutely maxed out their dexterity attribute, and a more nimble and graceful group you couldn't hope to ever find. Now if you'd like to join them, and you'd like to help the channel out, or you'd like to see these videos a week early, or even if you'd like to become a real honest-to-goodness fake Laird of Scotland, or many of the other offers we have in our Patreon, then you'll find a link in the description down below. It'd be very much appreciated if you have a look. But anyway, let's have a look at the Psionics Handbook. So, this is the Psionics Handbook. It's for 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons, it's by Wizards of the Coast, and it came out in 2001. And it is a very nice hardback book. Looks very much like the other core books. The design where they have created a physical book, or a physical object, and then photographed it for printing the cover has carried on through. It is absolutely lovely. The artwork within is very, very nice as well. Now this obviously adds psionics and psionic classes, similar to the complete book of psionicists for 2nd edition Dungeons & Dragons. However, where that book came out very late in the game's production and was very much an addition to the game, this was created kind of core and is a lot more balanced. In fact, it perhaps goes so far towards balance that it takes some of the fun out of it, but it is a very well done book. Now let's have a look at the back cover. So, Masters of the Mind. Adventurers speak of rare breed of heroes who can bend the laws of nature to their bidding through sheer force of will. This mental manipulation is not magical, nor is it the stuff of superstitious gossip. It is the art of psionics. This supplement for the D&D game provides psionic character classes and prestige classes, psionic skills and feats, a psionic combat system, a plethora of psionic powers, items and monsters, everything you need to include psionics in your campaign. To use the supplement, a Dungeon Master also needs Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide and Monster Manual. A player only needs the Player's Handbook. Now something about this book is that it's kind of designed to simplify everything. If we delve in, we will come to that in a moment. Now the production quality and design is very, very similar to the core books. You know, the same sort of aged paper effects, lovely borders, but still very clear to read. We go through the contents page, an introduction, you know, what is psionics and the layout of the book, and we're on to psionic classes. Now, these there are only 2 of, although there are prestige classes later. Prestige classes being a class you can move on to once your characters become a bit more experienced. So, where other classes want to get psionics later. Whereas these are basically from level 1. And the 2 classes are the Scion and the Psionic Warrior. Now, it lays out a bunch of stuff like level experience for levels and how many skills you get and things like that out of the Player's Handbook. For simple nature of you grab this book when you're leveling and you're getting all the information, you know, what powers you're getting as you go up, your hit points, your skill dice, everything within here. Although it does mean that they're reprinting a few tables and some information. Something I've been pretty critical of other games doing, most specifically the West End game Star Wars, where they would reprint stats over and over again. But in this case, I'm kind of willing to be forgiving of it because it's not too much. It's just a few tables, and it really does simplify things so you're not skipping between books. Now it goes through the usual class features, you know, class skills, their class features, psi crystals, special abilities, starting packages for when you create them, you know, what ranks, so you can instantly choose something rather than having to build it up for yourself. It gives you various positions where you can create a character without learning everything in the book, which is a nice starting point because obviously this won't be familiar to everybody, especially when you're first getting it. We've got the Psychic Warrior as well, which makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like the Physical Adepts, I suppose, in Shadowrun, where they are taking their mental powers and they are putting it into their physical body. It's slightly different to the Scions, who are more traditional mental people, wizards but with mental powers. We're into skills. Again, we've got a sort of repeat of the table of the skills from the player's handbook, but we've only got skill descriptions for the new skills. So it's not reprinting a load, it's just making stuff convenient. Then we're on to feats. We've got various new feats. Meta psionic feats. Craft psionic arms and armor. Delay powers. Different abilities that they get to help their psychic powers out. They're not really required, but they help shape it, like a lot of the feats help a magic user. Then we're on to psionics themselves. Manifesting powers. How long it takes. What they are. Power resistance, concentration needed, certain special power effects, psionic powers, psionic diseases in a sidebar, how psionics are different, variant rules. And then you've got the disciplines. So the disciplines in it are the broader groups of psychic powers you can get. So you can have psychokinesis, and then you can get various powers which manifest beneath that. But you can't get those powers without having the discipline. And some powers require more than one discipline, where they cross over slightly, but those are fairly few. And we've got special abilities, psionic combat, to explain how people with psychic powers can battle in a different mode. So instead of magic doing ordinary damage and hacking at people, psychic people attack through psychics, but you can get defenses. And it talks about these psionic defense modes, attack modes, psionic combat in general, and the different attacks here. Then we're on psion powers. And this is where it sort of lists them all out, where the psion powers are, the psychic warrior powers, and then we're on to the powers themselves. So we can see things like here, adapt body is from the psychometabolism. Affinity field is also psychometabolism. Astral construct is meta-creativity. So you've got to have those disciplines. And it's a big lost in the list of powers. There's some lovely little pieces of artwork throughout it. It explains it. But these are basically the spells of the psychic system. The different abilities that you have, which have effects. You learn these, divination and clairsentience. We've got elf sight and psychometabolism, so you can basically gain the same visual abilities as an elf. Now, I've commented before about psychic powers in Dungeons & Dragons that it is essentially just another magic system. And I've had some feedback recently. Oh, I do like the ability where you can metamorphose parts of your body, graft weapon. So you can graft weapons into your body and gain extra skill, because it's just like using part of your own body. Anyway, I was saying, I've commented on psychic powers being like magic. These are just a different range of abilities, especially as some of them, we've got things like teleportation. I can't really see how you can do that just through mental powers. It is more like magic than anything. And I had somebody in the comments telling me off, where they are very, very different. And I have been criticised quite strongly for that point of view. But I still hold it. Essentially, it's just another magic system. It's a way of giving characters different abilities. What we got here, non-detection, null psionics field, oak body. These are fairly descriptive. Phase door, power resistance, polymorph self, psychofeedback, retrieve, sever the tie, shadow body. Sever the tie destroys connection between the negative material plane, so destroys undead. Continuing through, teleportation, telekinetic spheres, ultra blast, undead sense, and then we're into the prestige classes. So we've got the meta mind here, pyrokineticist, slayer, the soul knife. Wasn't that something out of The Good Place? No, that was the time knife. And these are different prestige classes which take psychic powers in a certain direction at higher levels. Psionic NPC stats. Various random ones, so you can easily gain access to a psionicist if you want. Psionic items, essentially magic items. Magic items for psionic characters. The book itself says it. So we've got different types of weapons here. Body feeder. All feeder weapons, special ability that functions on scoring a successful critical hit. A body feeder weapon grants its wielder temporary hit points equal to the total damage dealt by a successful critical hit. They're interesting abilities. They're kind of borderline psychic, borderline magic, but it's a very nice addition to the game. I really like the artwork here for the psychoactive skin. So confuse people. Also called ectoshells. We've got cursed items, ones which will exhaust people or backfire on them. They will subvert people. Then we're going on to psionic creatures. Some very nice artwork in here. Basically, the psionic template which you can apply to any monster. So if you want to have a psionic vampire, you can just apply that template on top. We've got the astral constructs here. Those remind me of something I used to read in Marvel. We've got blues, we've got brain moles, which are a more traditional creature. Caller in darkness. We've got the cerebrilith, which looks very alien-esque. I love it. It's very Geiger-esque. The bits of brain sticking between all these ribs across its skull. Very, very nice. Very, very horrific creature. Prismals. Fologubs. We've got Githyanki, which have always had psychic powers. The Githzerai. Intellect Devourers. Neothalid. Scion Killers. A fantastic looking crystal golem type device. Puppeteers. Sort of brain parasite type things. Temporal Filchers. Thought Eaters. Uderotes. Psychic plants. Then we've got the index. Now, where second edition psychic powers were core to the Dark Sun setting, and that's where I was introduced to them because I was playing a lot of Dark Sun and the psychic powers. Everybody has a psychic power. Every single character in Dark Sun has a psychic power. This was just an add-on for 3rd edition. I believe we had one player use it, so I was somewhat exposed to it, but it really didn't seem that key a part. It does seem a bit tacked on, but it's done in a very lovely way. It's a nicely presented book, and as I said, from what I can tell from my limited exposure to it and reading up on it, people did consider it very, very balanced, although somewhat it took away the imagination by applying a lot of rules to gain that balance. So that was the Psionics Handbook, and that won the poll this week with 31% of the vote. Only a single percentage point, and I believe, again, a single vote, ahead of Cyber Technology for Shadowrun. Now that's been 2 or 3 weeks where it's only been down to a single vote every week. So if you want to take part in these, every vote does count. So join in and make these decisions. Now Cyber Technology came in on 30%. Behind that was Realms of Sorcery for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the expansion for the Magic system, on 19%. The Point of No Return for the Babylon 5 role-playing game on 14%. Even though in the first day it was leading the poll, it fell way behind. Obviously a lot of fans follow the channel who wanted that. And way back behind was Merchants of the Jump Web for Fading Suns, which came in on only 7%. But as usual, they're all cleared out of the poll. And we're going back to Retro Adventures. And first in, because it only lost by a single vote last time, I've put Harlequins back in, once again. The sequel adventure to the Harlequin campaign, or sequel campaign to Harlequin, which delves heavily into the metaverse aspects of Shadowrun, with the rising levels of magic. It's an absolutely fabulous campaign, and I would love to cover it. Next up, we've got the Masks of Nalhotep for Call of Cthulhu, which is perhaps the archetypical campaign for Call of Cthulhu and has been released many, many times. Fantastic. And I'll put in Out in the Black for Serenity role-playing game. Now, I've had some comments from the last time it was in the poll that people did want to see it because they wanted to find out more about this game and the adventures that were written for it. So here it is, and you've got a chance to vote for it once more. Then, The Perfect Warrior for the Street Fighter RPG. Now, the Street Fighter RPG only had the one adventure, unless you can consider the one which came with the Game Master screen. It was supported quite heavily in Challenge magazine, which I've been covering lately, but this was the only full adventure published for it, and it'd be wonderful to cover it. And finally, we've got Slaughter Margin for the Judge Dredd role-playing game by Games Workshop. Now, this is a big chunky box set and has a lot to cover in it, so it'd be fun to go through that. But anyway, they're in the poll, vote as you will, and we shall see what wins. On other channel-related stuff, well, the Discord, we've been chatting away about various subjects. I enjoyed it a lot last weekend, where people were talking about different role-playing projects they were working on. That was a lot of fun, where we got to share a lot about what each other were doing. Great stuff. Come and join us and join in the conversation if you want to have just a laugh. It's a very relaxed place. I've increased the number of levels on Patreon recently, although not in the past couple of weeks, so it'd be very much appreciated if you check that out and see if I can offer you anything to help support the channel. But apart from that, there's not a huge amount going on. Over on the RPG Gamer site, I'm still completing Rogue One, along with my weekly reviews of The Bad Batch and The Mandalorian as they come out. If you have any comments about them, jump on over and have a word. We usually don't really talk about the website much on the channel, but I'm trying to make more of it. But anyway, I think I've probably whittled on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching as always. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.